Hello, I'm Mike Clancy. I was a federal community economic development officer, and I'd like you to vote for me for Caring in the Core for Ward 5. And my platform basically is, number one, a $17 minimum wage and 10 sick days per year because wages are too low. Doubling ODSP, double Ontario Works, and double old age security. Aren't you tired of starving? Let's build vibrant small businesses everywhere in Ward 5. Let's make Ward 5 the caring core of Brantford. Let's renovate empty buildings, public buildings immediately for housing. And let's turn public schools into community hubs with libraries and social centers and public housing for seniors and people with disabilities. So let's solve the problems. Let's tax all empty houses and other buildings to encourage landlords to renovate and rent them or just seize them and turn them into public housing. Let's replace Laurier with schools for nurses and personal support workers to provide hands-on care for seniors and disabled people in our community. By 2030, 1 in 40 people in Brantford will have dementia. Number 9, let's create public healthcare hubs in the core for doctors, nurses, and personal support workers, where the healthcare workers will be appreciated with decent wages, permanent work, regular hours, and benefits, so they can have a family life too. And let's put tutoring in the core to help our children catch up after COVID. And the time has come to pay the rent. Brantford's land was stolen from Six Nations, and it's time for an urban reserve. In 2026, I invite you to replace me, this old white guy, with an Indigenous councillor for Ward 5. Vote Mike Clancy for Caring in the Core. A mature democracy belongs to her people. And I want to tell you a few more things. Let's demand what we need. I worked in community economic development in the federal government for Conservatives and Liberals. Both of them deliberately underfund public hospitals, seniors' pensions, long-term care, old age security, and disability pensions, education, welfare, because they truly believe that unemployed human lives are worthless. That's part of their ideology. And I told you this 20 years ago. But you and your family have a legal right, hard-fought right for enough food, shelter, education, nurturing, and dignity, and hope for the future to thrive. Not just the minimum, but to thrive. A mature democracy belongs to and cares for her people. The expositor declared homelessness the crisis in the core. Brantford's solution? Instead of providing housing, Brantford spent millions of dollars on policing to keep them moving in the hope that they'll go away and die somewhere out of sight. And I say, whatever you do to the least among us, you do to me. And I talked to Ward 5 people, and they blame Brantford and Wilfrid Laurier as cruel and greedy. Instead of building student dormitories for students, Laurier executives get the pleasure of a big house and prestige by inflicting pain, depression, hopelessness, and homelessness by forcing the eviction of thousands of local people from the neighborhoods where they were born and hope to raise families. But they get the message, you don't belong here anymore. It's for outsiders now. Laurier has experts in history, social work, in the perfect position to know that they're creating a pressure cooker in homes where people take out their frustrations and aggression and violence on each other, confining women and children to stay with sexual and physical abusers, forcing many to try to escape outdoors, and many to lose hope and become addicted and kill themselves. How high is your body count, Brantford? How high is your body count, Laurier? Vote for Caring in the Core. Mike Clancy. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. My name is Paul Basanti, and I serve as the president of the Chamber of Commerce Brantford-Brant and as your moderator for this event. Our chamber is pleased to be the community partner producing this program in partnership with Rogers TV. Today's debate features candidates running for Ward 5 in the city of Brantford. Our community is facing a number of challenges in this election, and leadership will be the key to ensuring our future prosperity. I congratulate all the candidates on their continued commitment to serving their community, and we look forward to an interesting evening. The candidates running in Ward 5 are John Beaumont, Sandy Bigger, Mike Clancy, who's unable to join us today, will be submitting a video of his message. Paul McDougall, Eric Mundy, Mandy Samwell, Brian Van Tilborg, and Heather McDonald is unable to participate today. I am joined on the panel by Andy Straisfeld, a member of the Chamber of Commerce Advocacy Committee, and David Prang, our CEO, is the timer for this evening. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make their opening remarks. The order of speaking was determined by random draw. The panelists will alternate posing questions, and each candidate will then have 2 minutes to answer each question. In the instance of a candidate making specific reference to another candidate or a position that they are taking, then the candidate that is referenced will be given a 30-second time for rebuttal. Each candidate will then be allowed 1 minute to make a closing statement, and the speaking order will be the reverse of the starting remarks. The timekeeper will indicate to the candidates when there is 15 seconds remaining and will notify them when the maximum time for speaking has been reached. In the case of a challenge, the decision of the moderator will be final. I would ask that the candidates agree to the format of the debate and adhere to personal and professional decorum throughout the debate. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will begin with the candidates' opening remarks. And the first candidate to speak will be Paul McDougall.
Thanks, Paul. To begin, I would like to acknowledge that we're gathered here this evening on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Neutral peoples. Hello to everyone present here, and hello to everyone out there beyond the cameras. I'm Paul McDougall. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and to Rogers TV for hosting the debates. And please allow me to express my admiration toward my fellow Ward 5 candidates for showing up in the name of democracy and public service. I'm a professional musician and a music educator of 30 years. I am more importantly a family man, a community organizer, and advocate of a bright future for Brantford. My calling to public service began through volunteerism, and I am a volunteer in Brantford's network of incredible neighborhood associations. And it was in this community building that I've honed the skills and fostered the relationships vital to being an effective counselor. I am genuine and heartfelt, a hard worker, excellent sounding board, and the best teammate one could ask for. I believe there are always solutions even to the most difficult problems. And while there is much to learn, know that I am qualified and prepared to take on this most serious job of serving the people of Ward 5 with humility and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Bigger.
Who am I? Why am I here? Mr. Moderator, members of the Chamber, fellow candidates, family, friends, neighbors. My name is Sandra Bigger, and I was born in Brantford General Hospital and lived in the city of Brantford with my parents and 3 brothers and 3 sisters. I attended Dufferin Public School, Brantford Collegiate Institute, as well as taking drafting and strength of materials and AutoCAD courses at Mohawk College. My bachelor's degree is in sociology. It was earned after several years at McMaster University. I married and had 4 exceptional children, and I am blessed with 9 amazing grandchildren. I worked in the drafting and mechanical design field for almost 30 years. Including some international experience in Jakarta, Indonesia. I am committed to Brantford and coached soccer at the House League and intercity levels for many years. My membership in Toastmasters clubs in Brantford and Cambridge resulted in my classification as a distinguished Toastmaster. I recently joined the Brantford Garden Club. Why City Council? I have attended Brantford City Council meetings for over 2 years. I have lived in all of the 5 wards in Brantford. Ward 5 has been my home for 21 years. I have spoken at council meetings when appropriate. I applied for the position of interim councillor for Ward 1 in December 2021. I was not selected, but it was a great experience. Brantford has grown from 50,000 to 104,000 people. We are in a great location. We are an hour from Toronto, Hamilton, many other centers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eric Mundy.
Hello, everybody. I was born in Brantford. I was raised in a family with strong ties to the community. My grandmother, Florence Buchanan, who founded CKPC Radio in the 1930s, mentored me in the values of community, commitment, and dedication. As a woman, she had constant battles with equality. She ingrained in me to do my best to contribute and provide leadership by way of acceptance, education, community participation, and to never give up. I hold a professional designation. Fresh from graduating as an engineer, I received a job offer from a Brantford company called Barbara Ellis Fine Papers. I showed up in a suit. They handed me a broom. I used that experience to develop into the person I am today. Barbara Ellis Fine Paper was sold to a multinational corporation. I quickly advanced, never forgot that broom. By way of self-made opportunity, I advanced my career. I took advantage of advanced courses in risk management, contract business administration, emergency preparedness, quality control and assurance, and operational financial audit. I've held senior management positions in corporations and municipal governments, making full use of my skills. I'm an advocate for democracy and have participated in peaceful citizen rallies, excuse me, protesting the sale of our prize city jewel, Arrowdale. I've held City Council accountable to follow rules and procedures of council and the code of conduct. I know the rules. I've participated in the budget process, questioning needless expenditures, and I'm just going to say pork barrel spending. And I've challenged them, and I want to get on council because our dollars count. They really count, and I've got that skill to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mandy Samwell.
Good evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Rogers and the Chamber of Commerce for the opportunity to be here tonight and be able to connect with our citizens to share my vision for our ward, our council, and our city. My name is Mandy Samwell, and I was born and raised in Brantford. I've lived in Eagle Place for nearly 30 years. My husband and I are proud to have raised our 2 grown boys in this community. It has been my pleasure and honor to serve our community over the last 15 years in many roles, including through my work as a community health broker and as the vice chair of the Neighborhood Alliance of Brantford and the president of the Eagle Place Community Association. So I go to a lot of meetings. I remember one meeting in particular last February when I participated in a community safety and traffic online ward meeting. Some of you may have been there and remember it yourself. Many of our neighbors shared the importance of improving community safety and traffic in Ward 5. However, the pivotal moment for me was when I heard the words, "The municipal election is coming. Use your energy to support people moving the direction you are and be the change that you want to see." The change I want to see is council listening and engaging citizens. A change in the way that we get to solutions for neighborhood safety, addressing a livable, sustainable, and desirable neighborhoods for all. I will speak up for Ward 5 and be the strong voice we need on council. And this is why I'm here today, so we can create these changes together. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and I look forward to your questions and the opportunity to speak on the issues that matter to you. Thank you.
Thank you. John Beaumont.
Hi. Well, thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and Rogers for the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is John Beaumont. I'm your neighbor in Ward 5, and I'm not a career politician. My wife and I moved downtown from Marlborough Street 7 years ago as we thought the core of the city had a promising future. As we watched the YMCA being built, we enjoyed Harmony Square, the restaurants, and the events. The Y opened, and we availed ourselves of the facilities. Unfortunately, we have seen over the last number of years a steady deterioration around us. Restaurants, retailers have disappeared. Our friends hesitate to visit us. Walking about or parking is risky, and events have become fewer and there's less participation. We have tried as constituents to work with our councillors and the authorities to not just identify issues, but most importantly to make recommendations and suggestions that we believe would return our downtown lifestyle to one of enjoyment, fun, and excitement for all in a safe, secure, and clean environment. However, I determined that it's not enough to rely on others to deliver the improvements, so I've decided to get involved. Most importantly, I see the negative influence spreading throughout the city. We want to challenge ourselves and others to do something to make our Brantford a jewel of Southern Ontario, where home buyers, industry, retailers, restaurateurs, entrepreneurs become enthused about moving to Brantford to share in the growth. Brantford has a unique geographic advantage. It's an educational hub, weather, agriculture, and so many other great attributes we cannot waste through inaction. As an industry leader in project management and a business educator, I have a proven track record for positive achievement in complex organizations. I've demonstrated that I can motivate and train people to achieve goals often seen as too complex or too hard to change. I may be new to civic politics, but I am highly skilled at the politics of getting things done in larger organizations. That's all.
Thank you. Brian Van Tilburg.
Hi there. I'm Brian Van Tilburg. I'm the current Ward 5 councillor, and I've been pleased that you have sent me to City Hall for 2 terms consecutively. My roots are that of a steelworker. I do 12-hour shifts, serve the community, and I enjoy every minute of it. I look so forward when I go out there to the doors to meet you all. I've seen so many changes, so many new faces coming into the community, and so many that have returned to our community. It has been a pleasure to meet you at the doors. I just can't say enough about that. There have been a number of issues that have come upon us that have made our community a difficult place to live, and that's a fact. I've lived in Ward 5 my life. I've been through the ups and I've been through the downs. It is my passion to serve Ward 5. When I see these things that are upon us and what it takes to push back, it takes a lot of strength, a lot of energy, and a lot of cooperation from a lot of entities in order to make our ward a better place. To serve Ward 5, you have to be a fighter. You have to stand up for the people, and you can't do it alone. You have to have the people behind you, and you have to have a great ward mate with you. In doing that, you can work with other community entities, and you can achieve your goals. Each candidate here today, I have worked with successfully. And in order to achieve a better community, if we select 2 great candidates, our ward will benefit from that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll jump into our first question. Andy.
Thanks, Paul. Downtown Brantford is an evolving entity, and revitalization is not a destination. Rather, it's an ongoing process. How do you propose to work with the Downtown Brantford BIA, the Chamber of Commerce and Business, to improve the environment for business and services in the downtown?
And we'll begin with you, Ms. Bigger.
Thank you so much. I totally agree with you. The downtown is coming into its own, and we do have some issues to take care of. I feel that all of the stakeholders in the downtown area are very concerned about what they see happening, and I feel that it's our obligation to try and get the downtown sorted out so that more people are willing to go downtown. I noticed that there have been many incidents of people doing things that shouldn't be done in public on certain pieces of city property, and we need to get on top of these things and not just push them along and say, okay, that's it. We need to do something about assisting people that are in trouble in the downtown area, and I do think we do have some issues with people that have problems and are not being treated or are not getting the kind of treatment they need to overcome the problems that they have. The downtown area should be a safe and great place for the community to come together. I've enjoyed many times at Scare in the Square, many times. Actually, I have 3 grandchildren that have gone there every single year until the pandemic came and enjoyed Scare in the Square. It's great. The community's out and it's always been a great time. We need more events like that. We need more opportunities to meet people, greet people, and to come together as a community. That's what Harmony Square is for, and I think it's really critical that we get together with the stakeholders and we manage to host events and get events that are of interest to all of the people of Brantford.
Thank you. Mr. Mundy.
In 2019, the city of Brantford hired a fellow named Indy Hans as the director of downtown revitalization. In 2020, he was promoted to the new position of general manager of public works. That position has not been filled since that time. And really, from that time to this time, where they formed a task force in order to look at basically what that person was supposed to do. Like, nobody in this room is expert in urban planning or in redevelopment or anything like that. So it's my opinion that what they've come up with through that task force so far is provide additional support for vulnerable populations, yet they say that they want to enhance tourism, arts, culture, music, entertainment, and community events. Well, Harmony Square, there are events. The city seems to have this purpose of selling these treasures that we have in buildings. The old City Hall, for instance, we have an art gallery called Glenhurst. Now, Glenhurst has 700 works of art, and actually several works of art that belong to my family from the group of 7. So I phoned them and I said, "Are you going to display them? We don't have any place to put it." It's just like, "Oh, can I have them back?" Well, I don't know, because I know, I could take them to Hamilton and have them displayed for people to actually see. That we need an art gallery or something like that in the downtown core. With everything being sold off and given to Laurier, it's just not fair. Tourism's not going to happen. Thank you.
Ms. Samwell.
That's a great question, thank you. I think first I would start by working directly with the BIA to have open communication and find out the needs of the downtown businesses. I want to expand on the downtown improvement plan and the streetscaping plan to make downtown even more of a welcoming place to be where everybody wants to go. So I think the important thing is to build on what's already great about downtown. Downtown Brantford is the heart of our city, so we need to have even more events and more reasons to go downtown. I would like to see free parking offered in the city parking lots on weekends to make it easier for citizens and visitors to stay longer at our downtown businesses. And I would like to make it more affordable for community partners to use assets such as Harmony Square to even create even more events and activities happening down there. I think that the main thing is more people means more profitable businesses, which means economic development for our city. But this also has the added benefit of creating a safe and welcoming downtown and by increased use. So really making it the downtown that everybody wants to be at. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beaumont.
Well, what I've heard so far from my compatriots makes me feel good because people are thinking along similar lines. We live downtown, and we've seen models of similar setups in other cities. And I think the key is drawing in the people. And what do you do to draw in the people? You've got to give them events, restaurants, businesses to visit. Our restaurants and businesses are fleeing the downtown core. So we have to bring them back in. As I talk to some of the businesses that are left in the downtown core, one of the key problems is parking. I see people go to events at Harmony Square and they walk 5-6 blocks because they refuse to park in that big parking garage because they're scared of it. They're scared of what inhabits it and how to get to and from it. So I agree. The more people and the more business we get in the downtown core, the less we'll see of the people that we don't want to have in the downtown core. Now, that's not to diminish that we need to deal with those people in a humane way and help them, especially by preventing them from becoming homeless in the first place. But the downtown core has got to become a thriving hub of the commerce of the city. through entertainment. Sanderson Center is phenomenal. Harmony Square could be phenomenal again. And more events, surround it with restaurants. There was a day you could sit at Rockling's patio and watch the jazz festival, and it was phenomenal. There was a day when we used to have antique cars, and we'd close the street so we could go view them. Those days have disappeared. I'd like to see that much more come back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Van Tilburg.
Yes, the downtown during COVID was very quiet, and businesses were struggling, and the BIA was also struggling because they had to deal with some serious safety and security problems. And during that period of time, the BIA was running into some pushback on something that was obvious and plain to see. And so I worked hard with the BIA in order to help push their agendas forward in order to bring safety and security to the downtown. That didn't happen overnight. In fact, that took us 3 years, and we're just seeing the results of that hard work with the 10 special constables that are patrolling our streets. That, I am told by businesses that I've visited just recently, has made an incredible impact on their ability to thrive in the downtown. If you don't have safety and security and people being able to feel comfortable in the downtown, you do not attract the business to the downtown or the events. In fact, you have people that would be scared to bring their sons and daughters to Laurier. So that's the first. The other is that prior to that, we spent a lot of time and energy and pilot programs with downtown outreach, everything we can do to reach out to people who are struggling on our streets. It is a grave problem. It's certainly one beyond the skills of a part-time steelworker who's a part-time city councilor, is a steelworker. But we have to go to professionals. We have to find the solutions for the factors that are affecting those in the downtown. I guess my time's running out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall.
Thank you. So first off, I'd like to thank the mayor and the current council, Chief Davis and the Brantford Police Department for the wildly successful implementation of the special constables in the downtown. Safety concerns are often a challenge to many residents and businesses downtown, and the special constables are a great first step in revitalizing and bolstering economic development in the core. It will take some time to right the ship, and we need consultation with people and entrepreneurs about what specific barriers and challenges they face each day and their ideas and solutions. But I'm confident that over the next 4 years, we will see vast improvements in safety and prosperity in the downtown. And if elected, I look forward to working alongside the Chamber, the BIA, Laurier, Conestoga, the Downtown Task Force, and all the residents and businesses of the downtown on this file.
Thank you very much. The Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force released a report in January this year with 55 recommendations on improving access to housing that is affordable to Ontarians. What aspects of that report are most promising in your view, and what aspects, if implemented, would be a challenge? As an example, a municipal land transfer tax and housing as rights to encourage more densification are some of the factors in that report. But essentially, what can the municipality do, and in your role as councillor, what can the municipality do to encourage and support the development of more homes that are affordable to the average resident? And we'll start this one off with Mr. Munday.
Brantford's unemployment rate is 3.4% right now. There's still 4,100 citizens with no employment. Most employment gains in the city have been through low-paying part-time and full-time positions. The number of applicants on the affordable housing list ballooned over the past couple of years from approximately 500 to 1,600. So think about that. You have a low unemployment, and it's just ballooning really. At some place it's going to be out of control. I delegated a couple of weeks ago on a proposed development at the corner of Greenwich and Clarence. and there's going to be a condo tower and there's going to be an apartment tower. So there's going to be something like 500 units in each building. One of the delegates that delegated also said, how many affordable housing units are going to be in that apartment building? 5. So I questioned him on that. Well, why couldn't there be a heck of a lot more? That we don't want to make it a ghetto. So when you think about that, when you have a developer saying, you know what, we don't care about your affordable housing, we're going to sell these and rent them out at prime rates. I brought up the fact that, well, you're on Crack Park there, because that's where the homeless go, that's where they have encampments. And if you really think that you're going to be renting out these units at market rate, you're going to be selling these condos when there's encampments in there, there's drugs. And I said, you know what? You guys go down and look at your property. And somebody put out there looks like an old painted mailbox with, it's a needle drop. Like, you're kidding me. Anyway, thank you.
Ms. Samuel.
Thank you for the question. When talking about affordable housing, I think a good example is to look to our neighbors in the Southwest. Their project was multi-tier funded and created 40 new units. Another local project, the modular homes that will be built in West Brant, is a great opportunity as well. The point is we need to get creative and work with our partners, such as nonprofits, to increase the amount of units being built. 506 units in our housing plan is a good goal, but will not be enough housing for the folks on the wait list. With the current plan, it will continue to have us fall behind and leave many without a place to call home. I have many friends that have children that have recently finished college and still live at home, and they worry about the direction the housing market is going and whether they'll ever be able to purchase their own home. The housing crisis is affecting home buyers and our renters in our community and requires the province to step up and do their part. It is not something that Brantford can solve on our own. I think at this point I should also say that housing shouldn't come at a cost of our green spaces and city assets that are important to our community members. We must find a way to balance both of these needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beaumont.
Now, unfortunately, I have not studied that particular report, but I do see what Medicine Hat did with respect to homeless. They focused on, number one, helping the people who are on the verge of becoming homeless retain their homes. And, you know, we talk about affordable housing. We're always looking into the future. Oh, we're going to build this many, we're going to build that many, and we're going to do this and that. Has anybody gone out and started canvassing to determine just how many people are on the verge of losing their homes now that they live in and exist in? I know in particular one instance where there is a woman who's using about 85% of her retirement income just to pay her rent, and it's a very modest apartment that she's in. And she has to live on the balance. That woman is on the verge of becoming homeless. If she were to get in line for some affordable housing, she'll probably be passed by the time it comes her way. So let's start looking at the people who need to stay in their homes and help them stay there before they add to the problem by losing their homes.
Thank you. Mr. Van Tilburg.
Ward 5 probably has more large developments coming than it's ever seen in the last 20, 30 years. And a lot of that's going up. It was a developer in the South End that was advocating for incentive programs, and that these incentive programs were all misaligned. And so what we've done is we've taken the Hamilton model of incentive programs to bring in affordable housing, and that each of these places can allocate a certain amount, and then that bell curves against their DC charges. That can be drawn out over a period of 5 to 10 years. That's going to help. But quite frankly, if you want to get down to, that's the new stuff. There's a lot of interesting new things coming, but quite frankly, what concerns me are the old things. Ward 5 has some of the most affordable rents in all of Brantford. And what's been happening in Ward 5 is that homes are being purchased up, and people who have been long-term tenants, good tenants, seniors on fixed incomes, they're all being pushed out in many different ways, some legal, somewhat questionable, but they're being moved. And when they have to look for a new place, regardless if we call it affordable or not, we know one thing, that affordability is still outside the range of what people are paying in Ward 5 right now. And that is a struggle. It's a struggle for everyone. And so when I see this, each time we're trying to chase our tail, it's like, well, hold on, we're building this, but why are we losing this good home stock? We shouldn't be losing it. This has been a long-term thing for our area. It's well known. People come, they know that they can live affordably in Ward 5, and it's breaking my heart to see what's happening when people are coming in. One of the things I did was I made sure that Airbnbs were, you had to be the primary resident so that we didn't see rental spaces being converted into Airbnbs.
Mr. McDougall.
Whether we're discussing housing prices and mortgage payments or discussing rental prices and rental payments, almost everyone is overextended and feeling financially drained. I know that first-time home buyers find it impossible to get into the market, often taking years to save up, only to find you're priced out in the end. But equally important are the stories of the more immediately vulnerable in Ward 5. Stories of people who are paying 60 to 70% of their monthly budget on rent alone. I've heard stories at the doors on the nefarious practice of rent eviction, and they are heart-wrenching and illegal. Or the story of my dear friend and neighbor whose $1,200 one-bedroom apartment subtracted from his CPP disability check leaves him $500 to navigate every other expense other than rent. I believe that in concert with robust social services in place, both the geared to income housing model and the housing first models can work. There are always outliers in every challenging situation. However, I believe a roof above one's head is fundamental to one's ability to lead a productive life. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bigger.
Thank you so much for dealing with such a close to my heart issue. I'm very concerned, especially with the young people that are losing all hope and all sense of freedom in terms of housing. They look at it and they say, I'll never own a house. I'll never be able to afford a mortgage. This is a huge concern. Why is this happening? Many reasons. The economy, the upward trend in housing. When you look at what people are getting for houses now and what they were getting even as short a time ago as 2 years, it's phenomenal. Some houses have doubled in price. Why is this happening? There's several factors I think that are an issue here. One, we are attracting a tremendous amount of interest from people in other centers that when they sell their homes in other centers, they can come to Brantford and basically buy a house as good as or better than what they had for a tremendous less money than what they had paid for the house in Toronto or other centers, not just Toronto, there are other centers. The other thing that concerns me is this factor of housing prices being revved up and up and up through the real estate and blind bidding, which I think should be outlawed. I think it's a dreadful practice that people are going in and sometimes actually the bid that they have is the one that would take the house, but they're told, well, there's more people and we think we're going to get some better offers, so let's look at increasing it. So they literally bid against themselves and make the price higher on the home. I think if we look carefully at blind bidding and the pricing of housing and making it more affordable to young people, we'll be going a long way towards helping with the housing crisis.
Thank you. Andy, next question.
All right. The city of Brantford is uniquely home to the Woodland Cultural Center, a former residential school. Have you read the Truth and Reconciliations Commission calls to action? What additional steps should the municipality take towards reconciliation with our Indigenous community?
And we'll begin this question with you, Ms. Samuel.
Thank you. So 2 minutes is not enough time to discuss 500 years of history. There's real hurt and trauma involved. The courts, the government, and the UN and Traditional Council haven't come up with a complete answer. Ongoing communication and community consultation is key. In Brantford, we have one of the oldest residential schools here in Ward 5. That just speaks to our responsibility with truth and reconciliation, and it's important to always be taking steps forward to heal and strengthen these relationships. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Beaumont.
Okay. I consider myself very fortunate that I have a job where I drive into the reservation of the Six Nations area on a regular basis and see the young people that are there. And I am extremely grateful that these young people aren't going through what their predecessors did. I am very proud of the students that ride on my bus as I take them to school. They are really amazing kids, and I just think anything we can do to support them in furthering their education and making them feel, a complete part of the community is worth doing. And I just think that they are great examples of what we can look forward to.
Thank you. Mr. Van Tilburg.
We've come a little ways, but we've got a long ways to go. We have a liaison, an Indigenous Liaison Affairs Officer. We have the Survivor Secretariat there, and they are meeting with members of council, they're meeting with staff, they meet with developers, they're meeting with all members of the community. And the thing is that the stories that often are being told, they've been told for a long time, a very long time, over and over again, but people wouldn't listen or maybe brush them off. We are just hearing the surface of what these stories are. And for us to understand that we have to be open and be able to listen to this with real open ears, because a lot of people will stop at a certain level because that's all their comfort level can handle. And because of that, we have to listen and then re-listen and take their advice when they say, this is the best way that you should go to approach this problem of reconciliation and of re-engagement. We've already known this. This isn't really a surprise. It's been about doing it. In fact, I would say there was probably pushback on the liaison officer until Airedale had happened and they realized they needed to get themselves out. And this unintended consequence got us the liaison officer in order to help mitigate some issues the city got themselves into by not listening.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall.
Thank you. So, having toured this vast country many, many times, I've been fortunate enough to travel from sea to sea to sea, from Newfoundland to Haida Gwaii to Iqaluit. And in these travels, I've firsthand witnessed the generational trauma of Canada's colonial genocide against the Indigenous peoples. I am ashamed and humbled by these truths, and I believe that truth and reconciliation are the only ways forward, and I wish to be a willing participant, an excellent listener, and a participant in this journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bigger.
This is a very, very serious issue, and one that's not going to be resolved overnight. It's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of effort to resolve this issue. I think the key notes are communication. We have to open the doors of communication, and we have to be willing to listen to what the Aboriginal leaders are telling us and to what the Aboriginal people are telling us. We have to be willing to educate the public and educate the Aboriginal people in the language of their choice. They should not have to go to schools that teach in English if that's not what they choose to do. The option of having a language-friendly course available to these children, these students, is critical. I think we need complete transparency. Everybody has to know what happened and why it happened and what's being done to correct the situation. And we're not seeing that right now. We see little pockets of it and then it fades away. We need to look at this thing head on and decide openly and freely what we can do about it. I think inclusion is also a keynote to making things better. I think we need to include everyone in all of these discussions. I went to an exhibit at Glenhurst that's by a local artist, and it's showing some of the things that have happened in terms of the Aboriginal population, and it's very worth going and touring. It's very worth seeing. It's amazing. It's an interactive program where you see a TV show, and you also have the opportunity to look at artwork. So I would recommend anyone that's interested to take a trip out to Glenhurst and have a look at the Aboriginal art display that's there at present.
Thank you. Mr. Mundy.
It's difficult for me to talk on behalf of what happened to the natives. It's absolutely horrific, and the blame certainly belongs somewhere, whether it's with the church, with the government, wherever it belongs. I think that the city hiring a liaison affairs officer is really, in my opinion, this person is, putting together programs for staff and for council and whatever, different times, teaching sensitivity towards the natives. Well, growing up, I went to the powwows with my grandmother. I went to the snake festivals. We went out to the reservation all the time for their arts and crafts. She taught me, don't think that way ever, and I never have, ever. When the city, in their, I believe it's called proclamation at the beginning of each meeting, doesn't even recognize the gift of the land in the Haldeman Tract. So it starts at the top of council. It really does. And it starts with council to say, you know what, we recognize it. And as a council member, I can't fix that because I didn't do it, I can say that. And I've never thought that way, ever. But I can certainly feel for them because something failed them horribly. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. This year, the Chamber co-authored a provincial policy paper advocating for a strategy on homelessness, addictions, and mental health that was unanimously accepted as part of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce provincial advocacy priorities for the next 3 years. The Chamber will also be sponsoring a similar resolution at the national level this fall, both calling on higher levels of government to recognize and act on this significant issue. At the municipal level, what actions can the city do to address the challenge of addictions, mental health, and homelessness in our community? And how would you be prepared to address it? And we'll start with you, Mr. Beaumont.
Again, I refer to the example of Medicine Hat. They had a 4-part program, and they actually achieved a minimum of 3 homeless people over a 3-month period with their 4-part program. And the number 1 part of the program was, let's deal with the people who are about to become homeless and try to prevent that happening. Number 2 was, let's get them in a home first. Let's make sure these people actually have homes. Because what we do now is we say, oh, well, we can't put them in a house or a home at this point in time because they're still an addict or they're still struggling or whatever. You have to deal with the illness, whether it's mental or addiction, after you get them settled in a home, because it's going to be much easier to deal with. The other key thing that they did is they started to track exactly who are the homeless, not just the numbers, not just the people you point to on the street, but they kept track of who, and they did it in a manner that protected their privacy. But it also helped them target what services these people needed to support them. So keep people in their homes, get them in a home so they can be properly looked after and be helped as best they can, and you'll minimize the number that you have to deal with. And Medicine Hat, I will give you, is not as closely related to a lot of major centers as Brantford is. So it does have that going for it as well. But surely we can do it. And if more communities start to look at this in the way that Medicine Hat did, perhaps we can all start to see a change.
Thank you. Mr. Van Tilburg.
I'll just follow up on that. Brantford implemented that version of the Medicine Hat Home First program starting around 2016 with the same outreach, the same referral systems, the same method of taking people and giving them a home. Hey, we all know, roof over your head, food in your belly. I mean, that's where it starts. But let me tell you, what we got to do is we've got to all unite and say at the top of our lungs, we have a national crisis across the country, and we are failing in addressing it. We went through one just recently, and we all bounded together to take that on. We have an opioid and addiction crisis. It is coming across like a tidal wave. It is going faster than governments can respond. The stuff that we're doing is not enough, not fast enough, not spending enough money. I have too many not-for-profits with referral systems, but referrals to nowhere, people that are going back onto the streets, and they want help. Those that want help can't get the help. We need rehab centers that can prepare people for the long stay that they need to pull them out of their environment so that when they are ready, they can actually be able to be in a homes first strategy with supportive housing there. And that's where we've missed the boat. We have a tragedy happening on our streets every day. I hear harm reduction. Harm reduction is the most minimal thing we can do while people die in front of us. This is not enough. And quite frankly, from the mayors across the city, from every province, the federal government, they got to pony up and they got to take this on because look at our streets, look at how quickly it's spreading, and we can't keep up unless they call it a crisis and then deal with it as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall.
Thank you. I would like to firstly thank our healthcare workers, our social service workers, our outreach workers, and our community volunteers in their caring of our sick, our homeless, our elderly, and our vulnerable residents, especially over the pandemic. It is always a challenge when balancing our collective compassion for those in need with the concerns of community residents and businesses, but we have an obligation to care for our most vulnerable, and in doing so, everyone's quality of life is improved in that process. So whether it be barrier-free shelters, safe consumption sites, a day center for the homeless, or more special constables in the downtown or surrounding neighborhoods, it is our duty to look after one another. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bigger.
Thanks to Brian for mentioning what he mentioned. We do have a crisis with drug abuse in the system right now, and we do not have any facility to handle it. We're very limited on the facilities that are available. A few years ago, there was a lot of discussion put forward on getting an addiction rehabilitation center in Brantford, and it was it was on the front page of the Expositor probably 3 or 4 years ago, and as far as I know, nothing has happened. If you run into problems and you have to go somewhere for treatment, you are going out of Brantford. Typically, these people do not have the resources to go out of Brantford. If a family member is involved, the family member may help them to get the help they need and take them out of Brantford. But it's very, very difficult for someone who lives in Brantford to have to go to Simcoe and get their rehabilitation from Simcoe. Also, it means follow-up is extremely difficult because a lot of times the people that are in these situations are not people that have access to vehicles and are able to get to appointments. The other issue I'm really concerned with is the appointments that are being made by the social agencies for people that are in crisis or struggling. Sometimes you have to wait up to 4 to 8 weeks just to get an input appointment. This is For people in crisis, this is not going to help them. If they're in crisis, they need help when they are in crisis. And right now what we're seeing is that there are so many people in crisis, and the healthcare professionals are so busy, it's not possible to schedule appointments that can help them in the time that they need to be helped. When someone needs assistance, they need to get that assistance right away. It's not wait for a month and we'll give you an appointment. I'm really concerned about the fact that we don't seem to have enough people available to take care of the people that are looking for assistance, and we don't have a local center.
Thank you. Mr. Mundy.
There are basically four types of people that, or categories of people that are in the homeless category, being unsheltered, emergency sheltered, provisionally accommodated, and at risk of homelessness. The city of Brantford, they on Marley, they have a, I guess it's a housing first approach, to which they have residents there and they provide support. Now, of course, there have been problems there because of the monitoring and whatever. I believe that they're monitored with services 11 hours a day, and then they're basically left on their own. And then, the drug dealers start coming in, they start roaming around, and what happens then? It's like, when our ward has the worst crime in the city of Brantford, and you have to wonder, well, what's that all about? And what is the city doing? Well, actually, they don't even really report, through these different agencies, whatever, what they're dealing with. Is it the unsheltered? Is it the emergency sheltered? Because there's, very different categories in the way that it's dealt. In our ward, our schools are in the lowest 5 percentile in Ontario when it comes to standardized testing. And, the hopes and dreams just disappear when there's no safety net, whatever that is. I believe that everything starts somewhere. It's just, where does it start? Nobody chooses to be homeless. And, there's family situations, there's employment situations, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, things like that really have to be addressed in order to tackle this issue.
Thank you. Ms. Samuel.
Thank you. First, I guess I want to start by just saying that I agree with Mr. Van Tilburg that we certainly don't have enough services or treatment centers to be referring people to. I've had the opportunity to walk with the outreach team and see firsthand the needs that our citizens and firsthand to see the needs of our citizens and the challenges we're facing as a community. We already have the Brantford-Brant drug strategy and many service providers working to help our community members facing homelessness or needs related to mental health and addictions. To start to make even more of a difference, we will need to have a real wraparound approach that has our local service agencies working collaboratively to coordinate services to improve the lives of our citizens. A strong approach has all levels of government working together to create services and supports. One of the major challenges we face in addressing homelessness in our community is coordinating services. We have a lot of people doing great work, but they're all working separate in silos. Homelessness is such a complex issue, and the people facing homelessness have enough difficulty already without having to navigate a bureaucratic system to get the help that they need. We can do better by coordinating our services to a more comprehensive approach to support the people in need to get them off the street. As Ward 5 councillor, I would work to ensure that we're all working together to address the important issue our city is facing. Thank you.
Thank you. This is something we're going to stay on with our next question. Andy.
Consumption and treatment services, or a safe injection site, is a complex set of resources and services to address addiction, requiring community support and the federal government approval to implement. Do you support the implementation of a CTS facility in Brantford, and how would you work with the business community on site selection and addressing some of the challenges in locating a safe site?
And we'll begin with you, Mr. Van Tilburg.
You've hit the hot button for me. Look, I come as a person who, upon a time, was an advocate of safe consumption sites. And the idea that you don't want someone taking drugs and dying, I get that. When I look at it from the perspective of harm reduction, I don't know at the end of the day how much harm reduction we're doing when we need to do more. That it continues, and that one day that person doesn't come in or does something else, what you find is that the problems that exist that make the person need to feed their addictions exist out on the streets and around them every single day. That cycle is hard to break. And when I was speaking with Guelph, and we always want to say they go to these places and then you can, you find the diamond in the rough and you can pull it out. The people that are diverted into something else, it's about the same ratio as somebody that magically finds their way out of a hard addiction. There are problems that come with a safe injection site. Particularly, it congregates people all into one area. They shoot up all in one area and they go out all in one area. At the same time, a lot of the methods used to get the supply of the drug is done through questionable activities, and they don't go far away in order to find the monies that they need in order to get the drugs, and that can often be in the vicinity of the safe injection site, and that has been shown in all sorts of previous ones. So when you think about where you're putting a site, you certainly can't put it near any residential units. I am very ambivalent and mixed feelings on safe injection sites from where I was at the beginning. I really believe we have to do more to get the people that want to break free of their addictions. That's where I think we can be far more successful than feeding those that have their addictions.
Mr. McDougall.
Thank you. So on the topic of safe consumption sites, what I've been hearing at the door is that we need some type of downtown day center. And if there was a downtown day center that included a safe consumption site inside of that center, that seems like a feasible idea to me. Now, having said that, I'm here in a position of service to the constituents, and my knowledge base on solutions is quite limited. So I would be relying on all the bright minds in the social service sector, fellow council members, community members, to really be better informed of how to really tackle this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bigger.
Well, all I can say to you is, if I was to say to you, you were going to have a house next door to you that was going to be a safe injection site, how would you personally feel about that? I'm sure there's not a single person out there that would say, hallelujah, I'm glad we're going to have a safe place for people to get their drugs, whether they're legal or whether they're illicit. No one wants to have the safe injection site near them. What do we do? How can we solve this problem? No one wants to see, we don't want to see these problems. And when I've spoken to the people that I've talked to in my area, they have said they are definitely not in favor of a safe injection site anywhere in the city of Brantford. They feel it's only encouraging basically the behavior that's unacceptable. Normal people don't usually shoot up on drugs, and to encourage them to do so is, to me, it's a bit of a dichotomy. I find that very, very difficult to understand why we would encourage people to do it. Not to mention the fact that what comes with drugs, unfortunately, is basically legalities, and it should be involved with the police station. If we're going to do safe injection sites, why not put it in a police station where there are controls and there are blockages there are checks and balances to make sure that if somebody gets out of hand, they're in a place where they're safe and they can be kept away. I would be able to support what my people are saying at the door. I wouldn't want a safe injection site near my home. Would any of you?
Mr. Mundy.
Safe injection sites certainly don't belong in residential neighborhoods. And if I were to agree with anything, it would have to be actually where they get the drugs. Where do they get the drugs? Like when you think of it, it's like, oh gee, I'm just going to go, behind the library. I'm going to pick up, and then I'm going to go to down over there because I need a hit now. They're not going to do that. Like they're really not going to do it. It has to be something about breaking the cycle and giving these people help. Like if it's a safe injection site, fine, but they need counseling too. Like they really do. And to say, you know what, okay, go buy off the guy behind the library, come on over, shoot up, okay, stagger away, I'll see you in a couple of hours. Okay, come back. Meanwhile, if they're in my ward and they're taking my lawnmower to get $20 to go get a hit. Because we do have the worst crime in our ward. It's just horrific. And I see these people, these poor folks, and they go down East Ave where I live, and they look really drawn and whatever, and they come back and they're just whacked. Like they're just done. And then I found needles on my lawn. I found needles in parks. It's just like, I don't know what the solution is. To me, it's like, take out the dealers, give these people help. And once again, they chose to initially do the drug, but they took that drug for a reason. Something happened in their life that they took the drug. Somebody talked them into it or whatever. And, I see the young girls that are, pimped out so that these guys can get dope. It's horrific. So safe injection sites, it's like, knock yourselves out.
Thank you. Ms. Samwell.
When we're talking about safe consumption sites, one thing I would like to note is there have been some successes with safe consumption sites, but I know that in our community and what I've heard at the doors is there's a lot of varying opinions on whether Brantford is ready for a safe consumption site. I think if we were to choose to go that route, it would take a lot of education and understanding before we even started to look at that as an opportunity. And it would be important to make sure that we reduce the impact on the surrounding community as well. One thing that I would want to do before we even started to look at a safe consumption site is to do a more fulsome community consultation and really engage the community in that decision, because I think that's a decision that we need to make as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beaumont.
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't agree with having those sites in Brantford. It is just one more attraction for people to come out of metropolitan areas where they can't get those sites, and that just swells the ranks of the people that we're dealing with. As to safe sites, I get up every morning to go look after my school bus, and I walk across the street through the Y and take the elevator into the parking garage, and in the stairwell is probably, in their conception, the safest site for them to do their drugs, because that's where they are all the time. And it's interesting, we had one security guard who was very aware of that and made his presence known, and they weren't around. But if he wasn't around, that's where they went. So they will find the places to do the drugs. What we have to do is set up the places where they can get the therapy and the treatment to deal with the problems that put them there in the first place, not continue to help them enjoy life in that manner.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the heartfelt comments from the candidates. Certainly a subject that deserves more conversation than 4 minutes can permit. We'll move into administration of the city. Our next question. The city of Brantford is a nearly $250 million corporation. And as councillor, you would hold a unique voice on a council of only 11 elected officials to govern and lead this $250 million corporation. Tell us about yourself. What makes you uniquely qualified and the best person for the job of counselor? And why do you want to be a counselor? And we'll start with you, Mr. McDougall.
Thanks. So regarding budgetary stuff, so my family, we have a strict ethos of living within our means. So we, with the exception of our mortgage, we carry no consumer debt, and we're quite proud of that, and we don't live beyond our means. As far as professionally speaking, as I've said, I'm a musician of 30 years, and anyone who has lived in that world knows that it's a hustle, and you have to be smart. And so we're talking touring budgets, recording studio budgets. Keeping that all in check is quite difficult. And then thirdly, being the chair of a neighborhood association here in Brantford that receives funding from the city, it behooves us to be completely transparent and very frugal and mindful of every dollar that we receive from the city in order to provide our programs and our initiatives. And I'm very proud to say that our neighborhood association has impeccable books. And regarding why I would like to be a counselor, I believe that this has chosen me. So I came to Brantford with my family and immediately began public service through volunteerism. And all through the pandemic, the number of hours I was investing in this volunteerism, grew every week. It was another hour and another hour and another hour. And to the point in which I find myself here wanting to serve the people in a greater capacity than I currently am. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bigger.
Thank you so much. That's a very timely question, and that is a very large budget. I think part of our reliance has to be on the city staff, because the city staff are a resource that council uses on a regular basis. Having been at many meetings, I've watched as the city staff have prepared reports, presented options, and basically kept everybody honest and kept us on track with what can and cannot be done in the city budget. I think that the budget has to be looked at very carefully and with an open mind to determine what things are priorities and what things aren't priorities. And I know there are some major capital programs that are on their way to City Council very soon, such as the infrastructure rebuilding down Colburn Street as well as Dalhousie Street. That's a tremendously expensive program. And if we're going to do the work on the streetscapes, it doesn't make sense to do that kind of work and not ensure that all of the hidden things, the pipes, the connections, the water lines, all of the things that we don't see are taken care of. If we don't take care of that, there's no point in doing the sidewalks and creating the streetscape when we have to take care of what's underneath and what makes the area function. So, and that's a major project, and it's a very expensive project. We're trying to attract new people to the city, and by getting new people, we will get more taxes. So what we have to be cognizant of is the fact that these taxes are spent responsibly and very carefully to ensure that they go to the people that need the funds the most and to the projects that are the most important for the most members of the city of Brantford. I would look forward to working with council. I have, as I say, I've attended many meetings and watched as they go through their processes, and it's not a simple thing. There's a lot of work and a lot of effort that goes into these budgets. I would like to help with this.
Thank you. Mr. Mundy, why do you want to be a counselor?
Well, number one, I'm a certified auditor, and we're talking about the budget. And what I found, like, coming into the next budget cycle is, they have spending more than $10 million on consultants, needless studies for the most part, because I've reconciled back to them. I've looked at studies that have been done in the past that they're paying these consultants to do, and nothing happens. They're spending money on infrastructure that its time has come, but they put $150,000 into saying, oh yeah, the time has come. It's just replace it. Like, save that money. When you have like $2 million pegged to create a private enclave in the I guess west north end on Palmerston and Ada, and these are the closed off roads that are basically avenues. It's the overflow coming off of St. Paul, and with all the development down there, that is just going to be absolute chaos. So this to me is, you know, catering to people that it's almost like buying votes, that this is what they want, they're wealthy, and they contribute to the campaigns. You have $55 million for what I would call a recreational palace out in West Brant. $55 million. Now, okay, if we had the money, fine, but it's all debenture financed. And my pet peeve with this city right now is that there are 2,300 dwellings in Ward 5, 2,300, almost 10,000 people that have lead water pipelines coming into their properties. The city's offering $1,500 grant and then $3,000 loan and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, the city did it, they should fix it. Instead of all these little pet projects up to nowhere. I just want to save people in my neighborhood. I live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Samwell.
So I've reviewed many different financial reports through my roles on community and my community work. My community experience has given me the opportunity to understand budgets and ways to find efficiencies to increase value to our citizens for the dollars that are spent. All of these skills are very transferable to a larger scale, and I understand the importance of prioritization and that the best product isn't always the cheapest. I know that you have to spend money to have a great product. I value finding efficiencies. I know the topic of taxes needs to be managed by caring yet proficient people around the council table. After many years of working in the community and doing everything I can to make it a better city to work, live, and play, I'm ready to take my service to the next level and truly make an even bigger positive impact on our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beaumont.
In terms of qualifications, in my 35-year career in business, I was primarily a project manager. Many of the projects that I managed were in multi-million dollars, including $250 million for the Belleville Distribution Center that we built. Every project I managed was a success, I'm glad to say. So I think that qualification speaks for itself. As to why do I want to become a counselor is very simple. We've found, other than one person present, so it's a bit of endorsement, very few of the city management and counselors and officers in the police department actually listened to suggestions that we as constituents made. And I'm tired of not being listened to. I want to provide the opportunity for constituents to have somebody that will listen to them. And I'd like to be a counselor that listens to what people have to say.
Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Van Tilburg.
Well, you may not like this, but with 8 years of doing the budgets, and one of the things the Chamber advocated for was changing the mill rates for particularly business and commercial commercial, and that burden goes on to residential homeowners. And quite frankly, what we saw in the budgets was that we could attract business without that mill rate change. And the other thing that was hammering us on the budget, because we were doing those mill rate changes, but the businesses were more successful at MPAC, where they would have major reductions in the value of their property. And we base things based on the value of the property at a certain time. So if they come back later and then say, hey, our property, we just had it reevaluated and it is $500,000, $1.5 million less, that money is immediately gone. and then we scramble. And so now we actually don't have enough money to operate based on the balanced budget, and that then piles up. So one of the things that I'm actually happy on, and we have done it in the past, but this, and I'm sorry, Chamber, because I do know that you push for this, but we put a halt to it for now, because at this point in time, it's not needed. And we know right now that that homes are the most important thing, and putting extra taxes on people with a fixed income is a higher burden that's unnecessary if we can do it in a different way. So right now, the corporations are able to shoulder the burden, hold the line. We don't have to put that burden onto the residential tax base. And corporations continue to go to MPAC, and they do what virtually no homeowner can do. I don't think homeowners are going to be very successful going to MPAC and saying, hey, my house isn't worth what it was 10 years previous, because that's what corporations have been doing. They've been getting values 10 years early. Why do I want to be a councillor? Well, quite frankly, I bring a perspective of a shift worker. There's not many shift workers ever on a council anywhere. You know, the world revolves around a shift worker. No, that's not the way it is. The shift worker revolves around the world. The type of talk that I have with the regular people, that's who engages with me. They expect those kind of values to come to council and to be championed.
Thank you very much. Andy.
City of Brantford's success is closely tied to the success of its neighbors in the county of Brant and increasingly the Six Nations of the Grand River. We share boundaries and land use opportunities with both, and in 2017 brought close to 1,700 hectares of land into our sorry guys. So 1,700 hectares of land into here. The question is, what would you do to endorse, as your role as a councillor, the proper or uses of this new windfall of property within the boundary?
So we'll start with you, Ms. Bigger.
Well, we've already started to do some things to the property that's been brought in. I take it you're referring to the North End property that we
Yes.
purchased. There's already a new school planning to go in there, a new Roman Catholic school, dependent on the fact that we get moving on getting the lot service so that it can be taken care of. I believe the deadline for it is 2024. The funds are set aside, they're ready to go to that school, but we have to make sure that the lot's ready and that there's a road to get the students into the school. But that's one of the areas where we need to cooperate with the new lands that are available and get these lots serviced so that we can use them. In terms of other areas, we now have a hydro company that is now part of the larger branch that we were in. We now are affiliated with Cambridge, and we're affiliated with Brant County, and that should help to build some bridges. That should help to bring some commonality into the people of Brantford. And in terms of that land that's empty, we've got to start looking at housing and getting a housing that people can afford to live in, that young people can have to start out in, that funding is available to assist young people with the housing that they need. We need to give them back the hope that they can one day be homeowners like their parents and like their grandparents. It's sad to think that this generation doesn't think that they'll ever own homes. I think that's a very sad thing. And when we're annexing property, this is not an issue. It's an opportunity for us to get some houses that would be usable and would be available for the young people that are coming up that need to have new houses.
Thank you. Mr. Mundy.
Yeah, that was close to my heart. I know a lot of people in Brant, I know a lot of people on council. And their experience with the council in the city of Brantford is Brantford thinks they're a bunch of yokis that they could say, you know what, we have to go play in Brant sand. And I'm saying, well, Brant owns the sand, right? They're not just going to give it to you. They're not just going to give it to us. Brantford's decisions to build these massive subdivisions here, there, and everywhere, and having to do with traffic, we're dependent upon Brant to either sell us money, trade us something for it, or whatever. And when they talk about the city of Brantford, and this just drives Brant Council nuts, Brantford's always talking about a regional traffic system. Well, guess what? Brant's a separate corporation. Brantford's a separate corporation. It is not a region. It is not like the GTA. It's not like Niagara. It just isn't. That you have to show that respect, the need, and what's it going to do for Brant? And what can we give Brant? An airport? I don't know. Because everything, you know, certainly in our ward on Erie Ave, all that development there, well, where's all that traffic going to go, right? Where's it all going to go? Well, it's going to go right to the downtown core. It's going to go through perhaps county land on a one-lane highway. And once again, you get into traffic chaos. Same with in the west end and the north end. It's just, you have to have respect and deal with these people. You really do. And have that mutual respect. We're not a region.
Thank you. Ms. Samwell, what opportunities and challenges do these new 1,700 hectares of land in the north end of the city represent?
I think that they represent a lot of good to come. In working towards deciding what we would use the lands for, I would work with my fellow councillors to ensure we're using those lands for a mix of uses, especially affordable housing, and ensuring that we're consulting with the community along the way. Additionally, I think this is a great opportunity to work with our county neighbours. We are already working with our neighbours in the county on several areas, such as ambulance, the John Noble Home, the Mayor's Housing Task Force, to name a few, but we need to continue to build these relationships further, as we're stronger together, and sharing resources just makes good business sense. We will greatly benefit from both. There'll be great benefit for both the county and the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beaumont, same question.
Okay. The funny part is land is the one commodity that they just don't make any more of. So this is a huge opportunity. And if we approach our neighbors, Brant County, the Six Nations, and work with them on things that are going to be of benefit for all of us, there's terrific opportunity here. The bottom line is all of us have to grow our incomes to support our organizations, and I'm talking about the city's funds, and we all operate based on money. So these lands have got to be used for growth, and growth to the benefit of all. And it's a one commodity. I mean, we just can't go and mine it or dig oil up and suddenly we're rich again. We've got to decide how to use it best for everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Van Tilburg.
Probably one of the best phone calls I got over the summer was from Rick Petrella discussing the new Catholic school the new high school that's going up in the north end, and the fact that it's going to be focusing on tech and trades. That's an area that we are lacking in, and an area that's going to have significant growth for a person that needs to find a job. It's going to be the next thing. So with that, he has some pretty ambitious timelines that he wants to meet in order to have that school up and running. And so we need extra planning staff, and we need to try to meet them concurrently. Because if we are able to meet their timelines concurrently and join up with them, the other development can also start happening in sync when they see what's coming. In other words, often the plans are we set our side up, and then when we're ready, you start. We need to make it say, you guys can get going, we can get going, we'll meet you. That's probably, it might be the most difficult way to do it. Some might say a bridge too far, but it could also be the most efficient way to get quick gains in an area and meet the needs and get that growth we need. When it's mentioned about affordable housing, look, we have to spread out the affordable housing across this city. 70% of it is sitting in Ward 5. Other wards need to share that load. You cannot ask regular working people to constantly carry the needs of affordable housing. What happens is we don't seem to have the tax base or the other willpower where it ends up our recreational facilities suffer, or they get taken away from us, and big projects are made elsewhere. So if you can build those new schools, put in that structure, get the housing in, get the affordable housing in, everyone will benefit from that. Everybody can carry the weight and have a progressive and better life. Time.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall.
Thanks. Yeah, so to echo the call for housing and affordable housing, we're always talking about affordable housing, but really geared to income housing. You know, when we're talking about stories of people spending 70 or 80% of their income on housing alone. But simply put, you know, we're talking about a piece of land that isn't in our ward, and therefore I would really defer to the residents of that area and defer to the developers, get everybody together and figure out best steps forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one final question, and this one is on a matter that is of primary importance to the Chamber of Commerce. A signature advocacy priority for the Chamber of Commerce throughout its history, since the beginning of Brantford, has been the improvement of transportation infrastructure in the region. What are the key infrastructure projects related to transportation that you either have led or will commit to leading in this next term as councillor? And we'll begin with you, Mr. Mundy.
Well, I'm just going to speak for the ward in which I live, Ward 5. There's going to be like thousands of more vehicles on Erie Ave, thousands. And there's going to be a lot more traffic on Dalhousie and Colburn. And I look at these transportation plans and these plans to do the streetscaping and whatever. And I just look at it and I go, you know what? Number one, bicycles and traffic really on main roads just don't mix. It's like, that's an accident waiting to happen. And going out Erie Ave towards, I guess, Schweigen, well, the county owns that land beyond the Cockshut Bridge. They do. And you know what? That Cockshut Bridge is made for 4 lanes. It really is. But the city has failed to engage with them. The city has failed to put in any infrastructure to handle future development on our roads. And it's just going to be a complete mess. So what I'm saying is, well, for the future, before council or whoever approves all these massive subdivisions, have the developer commit to infrastructure and have that infrastructure built at the same time as the housing to move that traffic. Because I hear from people, I'm talking about West Brant now, where it takes them an hour to go to Walmart. An hour. It's like, that's just insane. Like, wow, so they have their problems out there, and you know, they can deal with their own problems, kind of. But I'm more concerned about my ward, the traffic, and the safety more than anything else.
Thank you. Ms. Samuel.
Thank you. I guess first what I'll mention is how I've been involved with some infrastructure changes, and that was with the work towards the Erie Ave changes and the new traffic light that's getting to go in there. That was something that I worked directly with citizens in the neighborhood and the Erie Ave advocacy group and supported through our neighborhood association to make that happen. When we're talking about transportation and infrastructure, I think something to talk about also is when we're talking about transportation, it's important to discuss that we need a solution to the West Brant traffic issues. This is a hot topic because although there was consultation, citizens feel as though their feedback was not incorporated. This leaves us with an important lesson and a need to look at the consultation process going forward. I do think that the current council was right to put that on pause with the current Oak Park Road extension. Much like the BSAR route, it's just not a good option. I would never support disrupting established neighborhoods or the resting place of loved ones in this manner. We should not waste any more time on the solutions that will not serve our community and take it off our transportation master plan and our city budgets. There are other options, and I'm very confident that our talented transportation staff have that well at hand. The key here is listening to the voices of the citizens that will be directly impacted. I think a prime example of this opportunity for the municipality I think this is another prime example for the municipality and the County of Brant to work together using existing roads to find a solution for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beaumont.
One of my favorite topics, because I'm in transportation every day. I've probably driven every part of Brant County, Brantford, and the Six Nations. I've been driving school bus in Brantford and Brant County and Six Nations for the last 6 years. And what I'm seeing on a progressively worsening situation is bottlenecks that hold up traffic. Now, that's bad enough being a school bus driver. I've got a timeline to meet. I've got specific times to pick up students, otherwise in the middle of winter they're standing waiting for their bus or they're getting to school late. But the real problem is what these bottlenecks do to the traffic that's out there that want to get where they're going. They start speeding. They start running our stop signs on our buses, putting our children at risk. Okay, if we don't look at how our streets and byways and highways are planned, we are putting people at risk, particularly our young people. And I think right now the situation is getting worse. One construction project can slow down a whole area because we have no alternatives, we have no decent detours. And this gets people frustrated, and their foot gets heavier on the gas, and they start making bad decisions. So I'm sorry, this needs very intensive look.
Thank you very much. Mr. Van Dilborg.
You got to know how problematic this is when we're listed as a places to grow area. We have bottlenecks everywhere. We have a river dividing us. We have 3 very low bridges that in 2016 you saw what happened. No movement across, no way to get from one side to the other. We have a BSAR that was 40 years defunct in its theory. It's too late for something like that. And the extension that goes through the Oak Park, I mean, quite frankly, no one's ever going to say build a road through cemetery. It's just not happening, just not on. And whether we need that bridge across to get people from West Brant to the industrial section, well, I guess that's a debate to have in the future. But quite frankly, for a road, we have to go either far south and work with the county, or we got to use some of that land in the north and figure out another way of doing a ring road to the north end. Those are the things that we have to comprehend when we're going through this kind of excessive growth. Brantford's going to change like we've never seen. At the same time, we have apartment buildings going up a lot more than I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 apartment buildings lined up for Ward 5. This is unheard of. All those apartment buildings come with a lower vehicle ratio to apartments, so that you're talking about 1/2 for every apartment space. That means they're going to have to use public transit. Public transit, something that I championed, was the GO bus that goes to Toronto. I started that long before I was a councillor and championed it and followed that through when I got on council. I was happy for that. Happened right around the same time of VIA. But when people come from Toronto and get to Brantford, they discover that our bus system is not up to the snuff of communities that they use public transit in. The more times that we build more of these apartment buildings with less people with cars, the stronger that we need our local bus system. And we've got a problem with that. For the first time ever, we had not enough drivers to man those buses over the summer. That problem never going to happen again.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall.
Thanks. So there are 4 transportation-related considerations that I'm hearing most at the doors of Ward 5 residents and businesses, and in no particular order. First one is the speeding and the reckless driving on our municipal streets, and people are very upset about this. Second is a reimagined highway corridor connecting Brantford more directly to the 401, providing people in business a more safe and reliable route to connect us to Canada's busiest stretch of highway. Number 3 is, of course, the 403 access and a reimagined path forward, as 2 previous projects have not delivered a solution, and the public are asking for new rounds of consultation, new studies, new data about the best path forward. And then number 4, to echo public transportation strategies. We need a public transportation strategy in partnership with the county and 6 nations. And if elected, I look forward to working collaboratively with residents, council, and staff, our neighboring municipalities, territories, and stakeholders involved, and lobbying the province and the federal government where we can for joint investments in forward-thinking transportation strategies.
Thank you. And lastly, over to you, Ms. Baker.
I'm going to look at this from a little bit different perspective, and I'm looking at it from the coming wave of the future, which is electric vehicles and hybrids. What have we got in Brantford to support the mass implementation of electric vehicles? Do we have charging stations? Do we have areas where people can go and know they can charge their vehicles? Do we have buildings that have charging stations in them? If we don't look towards getting these things in place, when the time comes, it's going to be a nightmare, and there's going to be people that are going to have to abandon their vehicles because they can't get them charged. We have to look at that sort of thing, because if we don't look at that, we are not going to be around to do anything, because we have to look at getting rid of the fossil fuels and the climate change that is associated with fossil fuels. This is a major concern of mine. I've been saying this forever. It's easy. Let's get solar panels. Let's get electric vehicles. But it's taking so long to get it through. We need to seriously look at what we're spending on transportation and how we can do it more effectively and with less damage to the environment. The other thing I do want to mention is the city buses. And I know, because I'm probably the only one in this room that takes the city bus on a regular basis. I went downtown a couple weeks ago and got downtown to the terminal and found out that the next bus that I was going to be connected to wasn't coming for another hour. That's not an efficient use of buses, and it's not a way that you can travel around. If I wanted to go to the north end of the city, I would take 2 hours to get there and 2 hours to get home. That's an awful lot of time spent in transportation. We have to look seriously at the environment and at making this public transit more usable and more user-friendly.
Thank you very much. That is all the time we have for questions tonight. And now the candidates will have a turn to make their closing remarks. And I'll remind the candidates that we have 1 minute for our closing remarks, and we'll proceed in the opposite order that we did our opening statements, which means, Brian Van Tilburg, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you all for watching this evening. We have fine candidates here that are all running for Ward 5. For me, myself, the time that I put in, I bring a lot of experience. There's a lot of things that you learn in that first term. You go in there with plenty of ideas, you'll get some of those ideas off, but really, you need somebody steady at the helm with experience in order to help the other councillors along, because we have to work together, we have to achieve those goals, and quite frankly, there are things that I wouldn't have known in that first term that I know now. That's very important when you're in the 5th Ward and you're scraping for every penny. And an example of that, when we talk about the work that was done on Erie Ave, I think I pulled a rabbit out of my hat to get the street light there on 9th Ave before the school year, and I'm pretty happy about that. That's the kind of thing that comes with experience. I think I've done an excellent job in the ward representing people, fighting for them, and I mean that in a way of when you join up with somebody and you take something on, you go and you win or you lose with them. And I think that's where I get my bond with the public, and that's where I'm happy, is when we fight together and we go down together, we go down swinging, or we cheer together and say, hey man, we pulled it off, and we're all real
right,
happy.
Mr. Van Tilburg, thank you very much. We'll throw it over to you, Mr. Beaumont.
I just want to add to start my closing remarks that with respect to transportation and city buses, my wife is disabled, and thank God for Brantford Lift, because if she had to use a regular bus, she couldn't get anywhere. And that's mainly because of the timing issues that were brought up. So let us not forget that our city is our home and must serve us, the people who live here. We can no longer rely just on professional politicians, but we need ordinary people who love our homes and want to get things done, to get involved and make it better. We need to get working and be quick about it. We want Brantford to offer great job opportunities, to be a place for small businesses to grow and prosper, and above all, to be clean, safe, and a proper home for our kids and grandkids. At the beginning of the 20th century, Brantford was one of the top cities in Canada for industry and productivity. Let's not make it a drive-through bedroom community. Let's honor Brantford's history and make it the thriving community it can be. I am a plain-spoken person who does what he says and works well in difficult situations. It won't be easy and it will take time, but a vote for me is a vote for a hard worker who will help us create a positive future for our families and friends here in Brantford.
Thank you. Mandy Samuel.
Okay, I'll see if I'm quick enough. I would like to take the opportunity again to thank the Chamber of Commerce, Rogers, and my fellow candidates for being here tonight and putting their names forward to represent Ward 5. And a thank you to the moderators for doing such an excellent job. As I've been walking through the ward, going door to door, I've been listening to what is important to our citizens. And what I've heard is we all want to feel connected to our council, share in city decisions that are made. We want neighborhoods that are safe and we feel connected, and a city that is livable for all of us in every way. I want to thank you again to the people watching at home. You have the most important job, voting. We need you to vote. Your vote can be the change you want to see by electing the candidate who is ready and willing to lead the change. I'm asking you for your support on October 24th to vote Mandy Samuel for the change you want to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Mundy.
Okay. Well, as I said at the beginning of the meeting when I introduced myself, I have years of senior management experience in municipal government and in private industry. I know the rules of council. I delegate, I complain, and things just don't get done. With me, I have this real issue with water. I know what the city did to our water system that scrubbed out those lines. I know they did it. And, you know, the $1,500 grant and $3,000 loan, it doesn't even partially cover it. It doesn't. It's like I got quotes from $6,000 to $8,000. That's a tax. It is a tax. And once again, it's Ward 5, boom. I have a problem with, we have the highest crime in the city and we don't have anybody in the police services board that represent us. So nothing, absolutely nothing. And we're going to get that. I will fight for it. I will really fight for it. And I will state my case to council when that appointment's put out there because it just makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Bigger.
First, I would like to thank the members of the Brantford Chamber of Commerce and Rogers Cable TV Brantford for providing this opportunity to introduce ourselves and our platforms to the viewers. We need fresh ideas and new solutions to the challenges of the next 4 years. We must focus our efforts on a united, resilient city of Brantford. It is critical that citizens of Brantford feel confident that their opinions will be heard and considered in all decisions of council. My goals include transparency and inclusion in municipal government. I envision a resilient community with ties to the past, commitment to the present, and optimism for the future. My name is Sandra Bigger, and I ask for your vote for Ward 5 Councillor.
Thank you. And the last word goes to Paul McDougall.
Thank you. So if you want a Ward 5 councillor who will always show up for you, return every call, every email, every text, every message, I am here to serve. If you want a Ward 5 councillor who is inclusive, transparent, and humble, I am here to serve. And if you want a Ward 5 councillor who will advocate for you every minute at City Hall over the next 4 years, please vote Paul McDougall.
Thank you very much. Thank you once again to all of our candidates for sharing your thoughts with us this evening and for your ongoing and steadfast commitment to our community. I'm sure that today's discussion will be of great assistance and of great value to the residents of the City of Brantford in making the very important decision of who takes office on October 24th. Thank you to Rogers TV for partnering with us on our Chamber of Commerce presentation to provide this opportunity to residents and the business community. All of the City of Brantford municipal election debates will air numerous times from now until the election on October 24th, and will be available to view online on the Rogers TV YouTube channel, as well as the Brantford-Brant Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel. Thank you once again for joining us. Please exercise your right to vote online beginning October 3rd at 10 a.m., in the advanced polls October 12th through 15th, or on October 24th, polls open at 10 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. And join Rogers TV that evening for election night coverage. Thank you and good night.
Spirit.